Welcome to No Name Football. We're working on the name, I promise. My name is Craig Mallis, and I'm joined with a good friend of mine, Alan Willey. Hi, Alan. Thank you for being here.
Sure. How you doing?
Good. Excited about this soccer show that we have, podcast, and give you a little bit bio about myself. I'm from Scotland originally. Sorry, there's no subtitles. I moved to Minnesota in 1999. Played club soccer. I went to the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee Division 1, and then I was fortunate enough to play professionally after that. I've been coaching now for 12 years, and I work with the professional team, Minnesota United FC, currently, so I'm very excited to do this. We have a great person who's going to be doing this along with me, Alan, who has a way better bio than me. Alan, if you want to give us some intel on what you've done.
Originally, I'm from England. I started my career in 1974 with Middlesbrough. Manager back then was Jack Charlton, great guy. Played there for 4 years, but I came over here in 76 for the first time. So the first 2 years of my career, I was playing all year round because the seasons kind of offset between England and the US. So I'd come over here in April, just as the season had finished, play all the year round, then go back again, and same thing for a couple of years. But you're 17, 18, 19 years old, which is not a problem back then. But I played from 1974, finished my career in 1989 with San Diego Sockers in the MISL Soccer League. It was about time to finish then. I could have gone to Dallas to play on, but my wife said, we can go, but I had two daughters at the time, and they didn't really know where home was. Was it Minnesota? Was it going to be Dallas? Was it San Diego? So I said, it's time to hang the boots up and get a real job, and that was the end of that. But I played almost 17 years professionally. It was fun. I was getting a little tired of traveling. Back in the MISL days, we played in San Diego. We had to go play Baltimore. It took pretty much 15 hours to get there because there was no direct flights. So it was a long day. Getting there, getting taped up on the bus before the games started, playing the games, going into overtime, coming back, hotel, restaurants closed, no food, getting back up in the morning at 3 o'clock to go back to the airport. And that was getting a little old, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't change a thing. I was inducted to the U.S. Hall of Fame in 2003, and that's kind of special too. That's
an unbelievable achievement. So you mentioned we were going to jump straight into the Premier League, EPL, English Premier League, but you said MISL, which is the Major Indoor Soccer League, I believe.
Yes, that's correct.
That's the one I was drafted in originally. How was that on the body?
It was tough. We played at the Met Center, and back then, the carpet that we had, it came from the University of Minnesota, and it was very thin. And what they had to do, they had to put the Zamboni on and redo the ice, and then they would put the carpet down there to freeze on so it would stay there. And it was very, very thin, and then they would pour water along the seams every 20 or 30 feet. So during the games, you could see those seams that were icing up, and you'd get on the turf, and then they would paint the logo in the middle of the field. And back then, we didn't have those sliding shorts, like they have these days. So anytime you went down the turf, you lost about half a pound of flesh. Oh. And then you go home, go to bed, and you'd be sleeping. You wake up in the morning, and the sheets would be stuck to your leg. It was just awful. And but the trainer of Minnesota Kicks back then, and then the Minnesota Strikers figured out is if you keep that wound covered up and get no air left inside, it would heal a lot quicker. So they would bandage you up, tape it on the outside, and keep that bandage on so the skin would regrow better, which was which is a good thing for us.
I remember when I was drafted from Milwaukee, and I walked up to the first day of training. I don't know how I had a suit because I was straight out of college, but I put the best suit on. I walked up like $1 million, and one of the veteran players at the Milwaukee Wave goes, "Are you signing for us?" I said, "Yeah, I just got drafted." I was like, "You got any advice?" I said, "Don't do it." So it's a difficult league to play in.
It was. I mean, coming from the outdoor league to the indoor league, it was a tough transition because when you're playing outdoors, you're playing 90 minutes and you don't get a rest other than the 15 minutes at halftime. Indoors, it's a different type of fitness. You're on and off, 20, 30 seconds. So it's more sharpness is endurance. And when we played in San Diego, we were playing indoors, and we'd get a day off. And once we got the day off, we kind of thinking, we don't really want it, because the day off that we come back after training, and Ron Newman was the coach there, he would take us down to the beach, and we'd have to run from pier to pier, which was 6 miles. And we had to do it in 30 minutes, so we'd do it again. And he's riding along the promenade in his bike, telling us to pick it up. And it was just awful, because when you're playing indoors, it's more sharpness, fitness, rather than endurance. And it was tough to do. And then playing indoors at the end of just before I finished playing, I had to have surgery on my ankles, because you get all these bone spurs that were breaking off playing on these hard surfaces. We played in Cleveland, San Diego, where they had boards down where there was a little bit of give, but most places were just on top of the ice, and it was really, really firm.
Oh, yeah, I remember those days. So, but again, like you said, I wouldn't change them for the world. You're doing what you love, or kind of love, apparently indoor. But yeah, English Premier League. You want to get stuck into that? I know we both love it.
Yeah. Obviously, you're a Newcastle fan. I'm a Sunderland fan, and we've had a pretty poor season so far between the both of us.
For the listeners, we're still friends. Even so, they're massive rivalries. I got nothing but respect for them, but it's great when we play each other, except Sunderland keep beating Newcastle. And
that's the only reason why Sunderland are in the Premiership as we speak, because they beat them last year twice, they beat them the year before twice, and the year before that they beat them again, and those extra points kept Sunderland up. Hopefully it's the same again this time, but every time we play Newcastle, we have a poor run going in, we win that game, and then we go on a 4 or 5 game losing streak again, which are in the middle of another one right now. But hopefully with Big Sam there, he can turn it around. He's had about a month there to figure out who he wants to play. I think he's getting close to it. There's international break coming up right now. It's a good time for them to get people that are fit. They had a few injuries. So hopefully by the time the break comes out, he'll get them playing a little bit better, but they've got some tough games coming up. They've got Crystal Palace coming out of the chute on the Monday there. And I think they've got Man United, Arsenal, Liverpool. They've got a whole host of top teams that they've got to go play against before Christmas.
At least we're Big Sam, though. And for you listening to Sam Allardyce, has a proven track record of having a very organised team, very good in set pieces, very good defensively. So I think you'll be okay with him. Well,
obviously they gave 6 goals up against Everton, but West Brom, they lost the first game. I think it was 1-0, and it was a goalkeeping mistake that caused the problem. They were shut out Newcastle. They played Southampton very well, although they didn't have many chances. It was a penalty kick that should never have been made. The tackle should never have been made, and Big Sam would have taken a draw. And like he said, right now it's games that they cannot afford to lose, but they can afford to draw, because that extra point will help you down the road. But right now, you can't afford to lose all these games. You need to get at least a point or so here and there as it's going along before you start turning things around. But obviously, it was a bad tackle by Villa that should never have gone. He slid into it. The guy's going away from the goal, no danger whatsoever, and he slides in, tries to make a tackle, and they end up losing the game 1-0.
Right now, where do you think Sunderland will finish?
Anywhere above the bottom 3, I'll take. If it's 4th and bottom, I'll take it. And they're not going to be much more than that. There's starting to be a little gap creeping in there now between Sunderland, Newcastle, Villa's at the bottom, Bournemouth's come back a little bit. And there's a couple of teams that in the double-digit range right now. But they've got to start winning home games and picking up a point here or there on the road. But like I said, they've got a tough schedule coming up before Christmas. And usually the team that's at bottom at Christmas time, 99.9% of the time gets relegated. Sunderland did that last year. They were bottom at Christmas time, but they managed to come out of it. So I'm fully expecting, with the schedule coming up, I'm expecting them to be bottom of the league, depending how improved Villa gets, because Villa are as bad as Newcastle and Sunderland right now.
Yeah.
So depending on how Villa goes, I'm expecting Sunderland to be in the bottom 3 for sure.
For Sunderland, who's your player to watch? If you had to pay money to go watch them play football, soccer, who would you want to pay the most to watch?
Playing for Sunderland right now?
That's got to be a hard decision.
There's not a lot there right now. Fabio Barini kind of piques my interest. He was there with Sunderland before a couple of years ago, and he played well. He just come back and he was injured again, and he got in as a substitute. For me, I prefer him playing as a target man, not necessarily a target man, but a front man, because he's quick. He can move around the field, and Sunderland Fletcher's more of a target man, but he doesn't have the hustle that Barini has. Barini can run the channels with speed and get behind the defenders, where Fletcher's not that type of player. But Fletcher did play well with Defoe a couple of weeks ago against Everton, when Sunderland should have been 2-0 up before Everton actually scored. They hit the post twice. Those 2 goals go in, and then they can kind of shut things down a little bit. But he played like a 4-4-2 formation, and the left fullback that day was getting forward, and he never gets back. And Van Aanholt, and I think that's one of the reasons why Sunderland gave up 6 goals during that game.
I'm a massive fan of Jermaine Defoe. I always have been, mainly because he's so direct. When he gets the ball, there's only one thing on his mind: I'm going to go, I'm going to go shoot, which can be a little bit annoying, as I was an ex-midfielder, so sometimes I'd be making those runs and I can see the midfielders making the runs and they don't give him the ball. But as a coach and as a analyst now in soccer, when you watch him, he gets it and he's direct. That's something we teach in the youth soccer world all the time. Like, the whole objective is to score goals, right? To win the football game or soccer game. That's what he does. I've been very impressed with him over his career. Maybe not when he was in Toronto. He didn't do very well.
But he's coming to the twilight of his career right now, and I'm surprised. Big Sam didn't pick him in the lineup against Southampton. He went more with a little bit more defensive team, but he brought him on later on. But it was too late. Then I'd like to see him playing with Fletcher a little bit, because, like you said, he's very direct, and especially when he gets the ball anywhere between 30, 35 yards out, he wants to run at people and take shots from everywhere. And he's good at doing that. He likes the balls down the channel. He likes to play off the back shoulder of the defenders. But Sunderland at the moment, he might be a liability defensively, where Big Sam needs everyone working on defense as much as possible to keep those goals down, because if they go 2 or 3 goals down, they don't have the scoring power to get those 2 or 3 goals back. But if they can get those goals early, 1 or 2 goals, get a 2-goal lead, then it's a whole different issue. But you are right; he's very direct, and you love that in a player. And hopefully he'll get a few more games coming up, and he'll be the one that helps them out of the relegation zone.
I think he will, to be honest. So other than Sunderland and Newcastle, what other games did you watch? Any other games this weekend?
I watched the first half of the Tottenham-Arsenal game before I had to go do the Minnesota United game. I always like to watch those London derbies. I kind of like Tottenham. I like to watch them play, and I think Pochettino has got them going in the right direction right now. They had a tough week. They had to travel in the Europa League. Arsenal traveled to Bayern Munich, but it looks like Tottenham travelled a little bit better. They looked a little bit sharp. I didn't see the second half, but in the first half, they were very threatening, especially with Harry Kane up there. Harry Kane's another guy, kind of like a Jermaine Defoe. He's very, very direct. He makes those runs forward. He works off the back shoulder of the defenders, tries to get behind him. And obviously he got the goal doing that, but Tottenham are a very good team, and whenever those two teams get together, I'm always pulling for Tottenham.
Yep, I actually watched the second half on that one, and for about 30 minutes of the second half, Tottenham again were by far the best team. They had multiple chances they should have finished, but then the last 10 minutes was pretty much all Arsenal once they got the goal. We definitely want to keep on the English Premier League, but you did mention Minnesota United. Alan is a commentator for Minnesota United. You obviously were watching the game from afar. On Sunday, we played Ottawa away in the playoffs. I got to watch it. I watched it multiple times, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on the game.
Obviously, a very disappointing finish to the end of the season. It comes up so abruptly. Minnesota had a great second half of the season, but kind of like last season when they came down to the end of the season, they weren't playing their best. Ottawa, for me, has been the best team in the league since the middle of the spring season. They've gone on a couple of 12-game unbeaten streaks, and they look really good. Ottawa is by far the best defensive team in the league. They don't give anything away. They stopped Justin Davis and Kevin Venegas from ever getting behind them at all. Not one time did those guys get behind, and that's Minnesota's attacking strength. Is those two guys, as you know. If they get behind the defense, they can get the service into the forwards for Ramirez and Pablo Campos when he's in there. But Minnesota, they got off to a good start. They got the penalty kick in the 8th minute. We talked about penalty kicks against Sunderland. This is another one where Ibsen ran the ball in, passed it into Mendes, who was running away from the goal. He has no trouble going away from the goal. He's never going to score going that way. But both Ottawa defenders, Richter and Falvey, got involved with him. I think Richter's tackle was okay. It was more Falvey coming in, sliding, and caused him to fall and catch his foot, and the referee gave a penalty kick. But if those guys just usher Mendes into the corner, it's a non-issue. But Minnesota got the break. Ramirez scored the penalty kick. It was a great goal. But once they scored the goal, Ottawa straight away started putting the pressure on, and they have a guy up front, which is he doesn't look like a soccer player, Heinemann. But man, he's impressed me. The 4 games Minnesota's played against him this year, for a big guy, he's 190, and you don't expect big guys to run around the field like he does. You would expect a guy. When I played, I was 165, 170, so I could run all day long. But a guy that's 190, you never expect that, and he runs the channels. When Ottawa were in trouble defensively, they just boot the ball away, and he would be on his bike and gets it, and he would run at the corners, get the ball, and he was causing Minnesota all kinds of problems. And for the rest of the first half, Ottawa could have scored 3 or 4 goals, so Minnesota were lucky to go in 1-0 at halftime. They could have been down 3 or 4-1. Heinemann had 2 great chances. He had a header from 6 yards out and a volley from 6 or 7 yards out that he put wide. But then coming out of the break, Minnesota got a little bit better organized. It looked like Vincent Cini was pushing a little bit further forward in midfield, and he was running at the Ottawa midfield players, and Minnesota were able to keep possession. In the first half, the ball was going up to Ramirez, and it was coming straight back. And that was the difference. When the ball was coming up to Heinemann, he was big enough and strong enough to hold it up, but he had players coming in to help him, where the gap between Ramirez and the Minnesota midfield was 15, 20 yards. And as a midfield player, you got to be closer to that forward if you want to retain possession. And they struggled in the first half. Second half, they were better than that. But while they were playing better, Ottawa got their first goal from Heinemann. It was a good move. The ball was played into him. He turned the ball with his chest 18 yards out. Good left-footed shot, low. Jacques did get his hand to it, but it hit off the post and went in. And I think from then on, it looked obvious that Minnesota weren't going to win the game. You were just hoping that it would go to penalty kicks, and maybe they would get it that way, because Ottawa was so strong, and eventually they got behind the defense again. I think it was a little bit of a mix-up. Maybe Calvano was expecting Jacques to come out, and they both stuttered a little bit, and it left Heinemann in there who ran in here on the volley. Minnesota had a great chance right at the death with Greg Jordan in extra time. He headed the ball off the goalkeeper's knees from a couple of yards out from a corner kick, and he just knew then that wasn't going to be Minnesota's day. But all in all, it was a decent season. You would expect with the team that they had to do better. But for me, Ottawa, hands down, are the best team in the league. Now, they're going on to play the Cosmos next week in the championship, and they beat the Cosmos a few weeks ago 4-1 in New York. And to be honest, I'm expecting a similar result, maybe 2 or 3-0 to Ottawa, because I've seen the Cosmos play this season against Minnesota, and they never really caused Minnesota many problems at all. But with Raul in the lineup, Raul, he can score goals from anywhere. He did that in one of the games against Minnesota. The Cosmos just seem to score goals late in games, which ends up getting him the win or the tying point that got him into the top spot in the league. But I think Ottawa's just a little too strong for them, and I expect Ottawa to win the championship this week.
It's going to be a good game. Going back to the penalty incident you spoke about, first rule I was ever taught: if anyone is going away from goal, don't touch them.
There's no
there's no need. If they're going away from goal, it doesn't matter. Let them go. Let them run all the way up to the stands.
They're doing your job.
Yep.
You just usher them into the corner. There's nothing. You don't have to make contact. And but for Minnesota's luck, both guys made the tackle. One Falvey left his feet, and I think while sliding, he made contact with Mendez's ankle and brought him down. But like you say, if he's going into the corners, just let him go. He's never going to be a danger going that way.
Yep. Coming from someone that's got no social life and just watches soccer non-stop, I get to watch a lot of the games, obviously all the Minnesota ones. I watch them on repeat on ESPN3. Also watch other teams' games. I thought we played the best soccer in the whole league for the most part throughout the season. The guys were great. I liked how we played. I liked the formations that we did. Everyone played their part. What a lot of people don't realize is how nice of men these guys are. I'm very fortunate. I work in youth development for Minnesota United, and these guys go out in evenings, on weekends to come do events for me, and they're always on time. They're the most personable people, and I've just been so impressed by everyone. I'm not sure how much you meet them outside of doing the job that you do, but I have to do it quite a bit, and I could not be happier with how the guys represent our club, and that comes from you and Chris, all the way through the players, all the way through the front office. So if any of the boys are listening, which Jimmy Watson told me he would, thank you for that. But it was a very good season.
Yeah, not only just the players, but the whole organization
Yeah.
as a whole, for me, is the best organization I've ever been involved with. They'll do everything for you. They're so nice and so helpful. But you are right, Minnesota did play the best soccer out of anyone when they were allowed to play it. When they played the 1 and 2 touch, no teams could get near them. They were just incredible. But teams figured that out towards the end of the season and would put high pressure on the midfield players, especially because those are the guys that were playing the ball around. But when at times you can see during the season some of the goals that they scored from the back to the front by just 1 and 2 touch. We ran a highlight package just before the game this weekend, and we showed 4 goals. And if you look at all four goals that had the same thing was 1 and 2 touch. The ball was played in, 1 touch pass. Ball was played in, 1 touch pass, and then it was in the back of the net. There was nobody in the league could live with Minnesota when they did that when they played that kind of way. But teams I was talking to Mark DeSantos earlier in the week, and I asked him about who the biggest threat was coming from Minnesota. And by the end of the phone call, he listed everybody on the team. He really was wanting to pay attention to Davis and Venegas because that's where Minnesota's attack comes from. Minnesota, if you believe the NSL stats, there's only Edmonton who took less shots. I think Minnesota ended up with 132 shots, but they had 54 goals. And what that tells you is they're very efficient when they do get behind the defense with Venegas and Justin Davis getting in there and getting the balls across. But Minnesota on a team that you're going to have a midfield player. And I mentioned someone like Steven Gerrard, when he gets the ball in his prime, he would get the ball in midfield and he would run at the defense and he would take shots from distance. Minnesota doesn't have that kind of player, and that's something that they might have been lacking once defense figured out how to stop the fullbacks getting behind. But as you said, they were the best team to watch, and I believe it was the coach of New York. He said there's only one team that comes here to play, and that's Minnesota. But they do that in every game. Sometimes if you let them play, they'll make you look silly, and they did it in a lot of games. But for me, Ottawa were the best team that night, and they deserve to win, and hopefully they'll go on and win the championship this week.
Yeah, that's good. You brought up how well that we've been playing. I think for me, when I watch a game, people who maybe might be the first game say, "Oh, Christian Ramirez scored a beautiful overhead kick," or Khalifa El-Hassan, top corner. When I watch the game, I'm watching the pass that goes into somebody, and I'm watching the movement around that. That's why I don't sit in the front row anytime. I want to be high up. I want to see the movement, and you can see things develop. So it means I think we're obviously well coached. Training went well. And then you brought up a big thing because you're an ex-striker. There's probably nothing more frustrating, and Ottawa's best player last week, Tom Heineman. A lot of time he'd receive the ball and there wasn't a huge amount of movement around him. I'm sure you were really frustrated with that as a player. You can't think about how important it is that when that ball is getting played to the centre forward, that you move as the ball moves. You can't wait till he gets it and then make a movement. You have to go support. So when you played, were you a target man? Did you have good support? Were people moving as the ball was moving, or did you have to hold people off?
No, I was never a target man, although I did play it every now and again. But when I played with Ron Futcher, who was a bigger body, kind of like a Pablo Campos type of guy. He was bigger. He was better in the air. I wasn't very good in the air. I could flick the ball on, but I was never going to win a battle at the far post winning headers. I made a career out of making near post runs and scoring goals at the near post. Either, you run, the ball comes in, you see the fullback coming down, and he knows you're going to go into this area. He's not playing it to me. He's playing it to an area just around the corner of the 6-yard box. So he plays it in there. He knows I'm going to make that run. If I run past the near post, there's no way I'm going to turn that ball on goal. So what I eventually would do would flick the ball on, and then we have people coming in at the far post behind, hopefully to knock it into an empty net. But
I thought you were tall. How tall are you?
I was 6 foot. I used to be 6 foot. shrinking by the day. But I mean, if you look at the game on Sunday with Christian Ramirez up front there, when the balls were coming from Najak or from Calvano, whoever was playing that ball forward, there was a little bit of a wind. As a forward, you like those balls pinged into you, maybe chest high or head high, because that gives you options. If it comes in chest high, you can lay it off to someone. If it comes in just a little higher, people, like you said, the midfield players have got to be aware of how that ball's coming in, and you need runners going past you so you can flick it on for them. And that's what I used to do with Ron Fletcher. He used to be the target man. We used to wait till the defenders on the midfield players would have the ball, and I could see. I was always sizing up the situation. And when that ball was played forward, it was a really high ball. 9 times out of 10, the defender was going to climb over the top, just like they did with Ramirez, and win the ball, and it was going to go back. But if it was a ball that was pinged in with pace, you knew he could either chest it down for you, or you could flick it on. And he would read me as well going past him, because I always liked to play off the back shoulder of the defenders, because I wasn't quick either. So that's one thing. I wasn't good in the air, and two, I wasn't quick. But I just used to be in the right place at the right time to score goals, because I could read the game very well. So when that ball came into Futcher, he would either flick it on or he would lay it off, and then the midfield player would then play it through for the challenge for me to run onto, because I could always beat a defender when I'm running rather than coming at a standing start. The defender would beat me, but if I'm running as I'm going past him, he's never going to catch me, even though I wasn't very quick.
Well, I thought I was bad in the air, because I still claim, and you might correct me because I'm just learning that you're 6 feet, or you were 6 feet. I literally thought I was the only professional player ever to play soccer who was 6 foot, who at corners was put on the post.
Were you in the near post?
I was on the near post to knock the ball out, just volley it. So instead of me man marking somebody, we'd have a 5'7" guy on our team, 5'8" guy marking a 6'1" guy. When I was the same height as them, I just wasn't very good in the air. So, but it's funny you brought that up. As for corners, where did they put you? Did you come back or no?
Well, sometimes we'd come back. We'd leave one of us up, usually with Fletcher being good in the air. He was the guy that would go back. But when we all, when it was the last few minutes of the game, we're trying to hold on to a lead, then we'd all go back, and you'd pretty much pick up anyone that was available that was doing there. But that was for defensive corners. But for attacking corners, I was always the guy that was at the near post. And we always used to play the ball, I'd start on the post behind the defender, and then as soon as you could see him coming up, I curl around in front of him and try and get in there to flick it on, because once you get that ball flicked on at the near post, it just freezes the goalkeeper, it freezes the defenseman, because they're coming into the ball thinking the ball's going to curl into the goal here. All of a sudden it's changing direction. They're going the wrong way, and you would hope it falls to one of your teammates. So anytime we could play that ball into the near post that would get flicked on, the better it was. And we scored a lot of goals. Like I said, I wasn't good in the air, but I think against San Diego I scored a hat-trick, and all 3 were headers, and they were all near-post headers.
So you brought up crossing there. My pet peeve, and I watch soccer way too much, all day, every day. I listen to it, podcast all the time. My pet peeve is, minus diving, my main pet peeve is crossing the ball. How poor has crossing the ball become? I'm going a little bit off topic here, but how many corners and free kicks do you see hit the first man and doesn't get into the box? And that was my specialty. I was slow. I was 6 foot. I couldn't jump.
We would have been
Scottish.
Good teammates.
Yeah, no, we sound like twins. But I could put the ball in what you want, and I can still do that. And I still can't believe these, and they're supreme athletes, as you know, the Premier League players. But how frustrating is it when you watch any team, corner goes down, defenders come up, you have a set piece, which is the only thing a coach can control, is an attacking or defensive set piece, and it hits the front man, and he clears it. And that was our position as defenders.
Well, not only that, it either hits the front guy, or they hit it too high, and I say they put too much air underneath of it, where the goalkeeper can come out and collect it, and that's even worse. You have to take free kicks and corner kicks and turn them into your advantage. And by playing that ball into the near post to get that flick on, every now and again you can change it up. You can maybe get people running near post, and that's something in today's game I don't see a lot, either in the NASL, in the MLS, or even in the Premier League right now. There's not a lot of near post runs, and it may be because a lot of teams just go with one striker now. But back in the day when we used to play the 4-4-2 with two strikers, one would go near post, one would go far post. And I was always the guy that went to the near post. And like I said, I made a great living out of it going near post. But you don't see that kind of movement these days. I'm not sure where it is, but getting back to the corners, they're an advantage to you, just like a free kick. If you got to hit the guy at the near post that you're trying to hit, which will get flicked on, and everyone's moving in the wrong direction, which is better for the forwards, or you have to hit way far for someone coming around the back, you cannot allow the goalkeeper to come out and claim it easily, because then you get hit on the counter-attack most of the time these days.
Yeah, I don't understand why they chip it up in the air and it goes to the back post. And it's maybe not what is about technique, but it's also just about a little bit concentration as well. I was always taught, you take a free kick in a corner, and for every team I played on, I took the free kicks in corners, you treat it like a shot. So maybe you're not trying to score right away, but if I see Alan Willie in the box, I'm pretending like I'm shooting at your head. So you don't have to do much with it. You can just give it a little flick. It might hit your shoulder, it might hit your knee and go in, but you shouldn't have to, for a forward or a midfield or even a defender, you shouldn't have to make a big, massive header and put all your weight into it. It should literally just fly off your boot or fly off your head.
Well, a lot of times, even with free kicks around the box to the outside, you see a lot of times where they'll take the free kick and they have two guys in the wall, and it might clear those guys, but the first guy after that is usually a defender, and you see the ball being picked off by him a lot of the times. You've got to miss that guy, and you've got to at least miss him to try and get to your guys. But a lot of the times, like you say, the ball has got too much air under it. The service hasn't been that great, but what has changed is free kicks in and around the edge of the box, which when I played, I was talking to someone the other day about it. Karl-Heinz Grunitzer used to play for, he's German, he used to play for Chicago. I think he was the guy, back in the day when I played, you used to have free kicks, two guys on the ball, one guy would just nudge it, some guy would come in and hit as hard as you can. 9 times out of 10 it would hit the wall. Sometimes if you got lucky it would get deflected and go into the back of the net. But with him, all of a sudden, he had a great left foot, and he started taking these free kicks, and he was just dinking them over the wall, and the goalkeeper wasn't expecting it. He was expecting a hard shot or a cross to the far side, and he started bending these balls. This was in like 1976, 77, and ever since then, you see all these people coming up, and everyone has a go at clipping that ball over the wall. That's a huge thing that's changed since when I played.
It's a work of art. It's beautiful to see. Like I said, the only thing I was ever good at in soccer was set pieces, so I'm very appreciative of that. The one I remember growing up in Scotland, my first manager, I think I was U9, 10 or 11, and I took one of my first free kicks, and I wasn't the free kick taker. And basically at halftime he said, if you get one, Malice, you're on the next one. I said, what do you want me to do? He goes, look for the smallest person, tell them you're aiming for them, I guarantee you they duck. So that was kind of the old school Scottish mentality, and you probably had that, how you grew up, that kind of different mentality. But now it's just beautiful to see all the different stuff they can do and what they can do with a ball. And also different balls, that helps too.
Yeah, I think the balls are a lot lighter these days, and they have a lot more movement on them. So when you hit balls in the volley, back in our days, they were heavy, and we used to have to call it, I don't know if you remember.
Don't say our days.
Dubbing,
Your days.
Yeah, my days. Back when I played, we had these laces in there where, you hit the ball and you got these, railroad tracks across your forehead. I mean, that's how heavy the balls were when we played back then. Now they're so light, and you can get the ball movement when you hit the thing. It's flying through the air and it's moving, but and some of the closer you get to the edge of the box, the harder it is. And I don't know if you remember the game against FC Edmonton late in the year here when Minnesota played up in Edmonton. It was a free kick. Minnesota were leading 1-0, and there was just no way that you could get the ball up and over the wall because it was too close. Well, I think might have been Lance Lang that took the free kick. When he came and hit it, and the Minnesota wall jumped, but he pinged the ball low along the ground, and everyone jumped over the top of it. I've seen that happen a couple times, but when there's a free kick about less than a yard outside the 18-yard box, it's almost impossible for anyone to get that ball up and over. Maybe Ronaldo or Messi might be able to do it, but everyone was expecting him to clip it over. The wall jumps it up, and the ball's played along the ground into the far corner. So.
Even Messi puts it underneath when he's that close. And people always say to me, like, "Oh, the closer the better." I remember a college game I played in. Free kick was, I would say, literally right on the 19-yard line, right around there. And normally, when you win a free kick, you might cheekily move the ball. Not saying we're advocating cheating in any way, but you might cheekily move the ball up a little bit closer to things. And I was moving it backwards, and the referee didn't realise at all, but the other team did. No ref, because they knew no one really could get the ball up and down in time. So I'm moving it back, and they're complaining about me moving further back, and the ref didn't do a thing. We scored. We beat Butler 2-1. No big deal.
Yeah.
But no, those are the little things, and that's what a lot of people don't realise, that how the closer you are doesn't necessarily mean the better or the more likely chance you get, and that's why you're Messi and you're Lance Lang, who I think is a very, very good player. Very simple. Wait for the wall to jump, pass it in the bottom corner.
And that day, it was AstroTurf, but it was raining, so it was slick, so the ball would skip off the turf anyway. But you're right. The better distance is around about 23 to 25 yards. That's the ideal yardage where you can get the ball up with some pace and over, and you can get some dip in it just to try and get it under the crossbar.
So yeah, great season for Minnesota United. Went a little farther than I thought we would on that one, but we both love them. They're great people. It's a great organisation. So congratulations on a great season. English Premier League. Your favourite player in the league to watch?
There's a guy that I'm not sure he's my favourite, but I like watching him play. He plays for Leicester City. Mahrez. I don't know if you've seen him play very much. I've never seen him till this season, but I've seen Leicester play a couple of games this year, 2 or 3 games. But this guy is like incredible, skillful, and he's quick. And it's just a dangerous combination. He's left-footed, and I just read in the paper today that Manchester United might be interested in him. But he's so good on the ball. He's skillful. He runs at defenders. He has the step overs. He's got everything going for him. He can get past them and shoot. But I really liked watching him play.
It's a great league to watch. There's so many good players. I thought you were going to say a Newcastle player at first. That's what you wrote down here, right?
No.
I'm just kidding. No. There's,
I can't.
We do have a couple decent players. For me, I'd say for this season, I love Coutinho that plays for Liverpool. I just think he's a different class over everyone else in the league. That being said, the rest of the league is still unbelievable players. But I just like how he can change a game on his own. I love how he can glide when he plays. He reminds me a little bit of Giggs when Giggs was young. You remember how Giggs would dribble with the ball and look like he was barely moving? And then when I played, I'm not sure when you played, but I'd be absolutely busting a gut with the ball, sweat, tears, spit flying out, and it looked like you were barely moving. Where Giggs would just kind of stroll. Coutinho reminds me a little bit of him when he plays. Have you seen much of him?
I have seen him. He just came back after being injured for a couple of weeks, but Liverpool need him for sure if they're going to do anything this season. But he's skillful. He likes to get the ball in midfield, and he's really quick, and he likes to run at defenders. Scored some nice goals so far this season, and Liverpool's going to need him to stay fit the rest of the season if they're going to do anything this season.
And Jurgen Klopp or Brendan Rodgers beforehand, should he have been relieved of his duties or no? Because before you start, I liked him as a manager. I liked his philosophy. I liked how he did things. I liked how he held himself.
He was at Swansea before he went to Liverpool, right? Is that where he came from?
He was a Chelsea assistant manager under Mourinho, and then went to Swansea after Martinez.
Yeah, when he was at Swansea, he had Swansea playing great, and it was just that ball movement, just like what Minnesota plays when they do the 1 and 2 touch. He had them playing that all over the field. But he was unlucky at Liverpool, whether he went longer than he should have, but Liverpool needs Sturridge back, regardless whoever's the coach. Klopp's the coach now. They need Sturridge back. He's been missing for almost a year or two now through injuries. When he's playing and he's on his game, Liverpool are a fantastic team. He scores a lot of goals. You see him scoring for England, scoring for Liverpool. But it just seems to be the day and age of these athletes are so finely tuned. Back when I played, there was... you could count the number of players on one hand that were finely tuned with the body, the body fat, and we had a guy at Middlesbrough. He came from Liverpool. Was Phil Bosma. He was just built like a racehorse. I mean, he was just finely tuned. But there's a lot of them in the Premier League that are like that this year, or this era, and they get a lot of injuries. They get a lot of muscle pulls. I think the fields or the pitches have something to do with that too. They're so firm. They look beautiful on TV. They're like pool tables, but they're so firm. You're getting so many knee injuries, ACLs, MCLs. People, no one's around them. They're trying to stop and turn, and all of a sudden there's no give in the turf. When we played, if we were playing on AstroTurf and going to regular grass, the grass back then there was a lot of give in it, and the main worry was about hamstrings, because all of a sudden you're going from AstroTurf to a grass in a muddy field, and all of a sudden your footing's giving away. You're trying to pull away quickly, and you pull hamstrings. But today's game, you got these finely tuned athletes that getting thigh injuries, groin injuries, knee injuries, ankle injuries, because the turf is just so firm. It looks nice, but it's really firm.
Yeah, I felt real bad for Brendan, because I think he's like I said, he carries himself very, very well. I think he's a good manager. I think he's a brilliant coach. Maybe that's what he should be, a coach over a manager. But when you lose Luis Suarez, regardless of what you think of him as a person, definitely not the best person in the world based on what he's done. But I thought he was the third best player in the world that year behind Ronaldo and Messi.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you replace him. He was absolutely incredible. And then you lose him. Sturridge, as you said, is always injured, so you basically lost him as well.
You're losing probably 70% of your goals right there between him and Sturridge. And, they brought in Balotelli.
They brought Barini back.
Barini back, but he wanted to stay to try and get his place, and there was no way he was going to get his place with all those players that they bought. Balotelli was a waste of time. But when you lose, like you say, Suarez, and you lose Sturridge, that's a huge chunk of goals that are missing, and it's hard to replace it in any team. But Liverpool didn't quite score enough goals once those guys were out or gone to win enough games to keep him around.
So let's rewind the clock 5 years. Alan Willie, who's now 25 instead of 30. What manager would you want to play under who's in the Premier League? And I will start by saying if I was still playing professional soccer, I would choose Jose Mourinho. You can ask me why after you answer the question, or you can answer me now. But who would you think you would play the best under? Who would get the most out of Alan Willie?
Well, you have to go back a lot longer than 5 years. Actually, it was my first manager that I was at Middlesbrough, and it was Jack Charlton. He was by far the best manager I'd ever worked under. I haven't worked under a lot because the teams I went to, I usually stayed. I was at Middlesbrough. I went to Minnesota. I went to Montreal for 3 years and San Diego. So I didn't move around a lot, but the best manager I played under was by far Jack Charlton, and he was manager of the Republic of Ireland team for a long time. He took them all the way almost to the quarterfinals in the World
94.
Cup. Yeah, I mean that was an incredible run, but he just gets the best out of people. He's a little different. He's a little rough around the edges, but
that's what you need.
That's what you need sometimes. These players these days are so pampered. A lot of the managers in any sport have a hard time controlling any of the players right now because they make so much money and they don't really care about it. But a guy like Jack Charlton, all that went out the window. It was either his way or you weren't going to play, and that's the way he got results. And he was tremendous at doing it.
You mentioned Montreal. Who is it you played for there?
Montreal Manique. They played at the Olympic Stadium. I played there for 3. I went there in 81. I left. I got traded away in 81. I think it was just around July 2nd, July 3rd. From Minnesota here. At that time, it looked like Minnesota were going to be folding at the end of the year. So I believe they're trying to get some money for me. So I was the leading goal scorer every year there. So they decided to get the most money they could from me while they could.
How much?
Back then, I think it was like $300,000 or $400,000. I couldn't remember the exact amount. But I went to Montreal, and Eddie Firmani was there. Gordon Hill, who used to play at Manchester United. Mm-hmm. He was the winger. He was there. Tony Towers was there. So I went there in the middle of the year. I think the second or third game was against Minnesota. And 10 minutes into the game, the ball came to my feet. Quick turn, boom, back of the net. never felt so good. We ended up winning the game 3-1. But I ended up being the leading scorer for Montreal the 3 or 4 years I played in there. So we played at the Olympic Stadium. The turf wasn't as good as it is nowadays. I saw your brother playing there a few weeks ago in the Champions League game. Completely different turf when we played there. Was the turf in nowadays is very nice, but back in the days when we played, it wasn't turf; it was carpet. It was green carpet, is what it was. And I remember we were playing Tulsa, and they used to have a baseball team there in Olympic Stadium, and they were painting the lines, so they had to hammer these nails in, tie a string round, pull the string, and then mark the line. That's how they used to do it in the olden days. And then right after we practiced, they started painting the lines before Tulsa came in. And there's a guy, Billy Caskey, who was on the Tulsa team. They were just playing the little knock-around keep away, and he tried to slide to get the ball off someone, and someone had forgot a nail to pull out of the... And he ripped his knee, had about an 8-inch gash in his knee, and he couldn't play. But that's how it was, And I remember playing against New York. We had a goal scored. Someone had shot a ball from 25 yards. It was coming into the goalkeeper, and right in front of the goal used to be where the diamond was for the baseball field. But it had this little ridge of about half an inch. I think it was Birkenbein. It went down to pick the ball up. It rolled him on the shoulder and bounced right out, and it was an empty net goal. But those were the little tweaks you had to be aware of playing on AstroTurf in those baseball stadiums.
No, that's funny. I actually didn't know you played in Montreal, so definitely want to give a little shout out to my brother who plays for the Montreal Impact. They had a great season. I'm his biggest critic. I watch all of his games. He knows if he doesn't play the best, I'll let him know. But he was unbelievably consistent this year. I couldn't be more proud of him. Like you said, he played in the Champions League final. I actually went up to Montreal for the game. I don't know if I notified my bosses, so I probably shouldn't have said that. But I went out for a couple of days to Montreal, and it was great. It was in the Olympic Stadium, Saputo Stadium, what I played in. I would rather it be outside, but 60,000. It was brilliant, and he played unbelievable. In the first leg, they played down at the Azteca down in Mexico. So that was 100, and I'm sure he'll correct me when I get home, but 105,000 people. And he said it was just incredible. So I want to give him a shout out and his team. So if anyone doesn't have an MLS team yet, if you want a second choice team other than Minnesota United FC, give a little follow to Montreal Impact as well.
Yeah, going back to the Montreal teams, when I played in Montreal, great fans, great ethnic area, a huge amount of fans. When we played there, especially in the playoffs, we had 50, 60,000 against the Chicago Sting and against the New York Cosmos at times. It was an incredible atmosphere in the Olympic Stadium.
I went up to go visit him, and as soon as I get to his apartment, he's like, "Yep, see you later, mate." What do you mean? He gets on a bus, and he's gone, staying in a hotel for 2 or 3 days prior to the game because they take the team away. So I'm just in his apartment in a foreign city, foreign country for me. I've never been in Canada before, except for when I played. Fortunately, I speak French, and it's all French. It's mainly a French-speaking city.
99%.
Yep.
When I played there, it was just the same. But we used to live out. It was like 45 minutes outside of the cities, where it was a little area where it was all English speaking. All the shops were English, signs and what have you. So you didn't feel like you were living in a different country. But once you got into downtown, all the signs changed to the French and signs.
See, he wasn't downtown. He was somewhere else. I think similar to where you were, but it wasn't an English-speaking one. It was still a French-speaking one, but he wasn't downtown. He was maybe 25 minutes northeast of downtown.
Okay.
But literally, I'd just get up. Nobody's there. Just walk around. I'm just speaking French to people. Walking around, they're like, "Oh, what you doing here?" I'm like, "My little brother's playing the Champions League final tomorrow," and they bought me a few rounds, which was good. But yeah, big shout out to Callum. So well done on a great season. European soccer. If you had to choose a game that your life depended on, Ronaldo or Messi on your team?
That's a tough question. And 99% of the people are going to go with Messi. And I have no complaints with that. But for me, the reason why I say Ronaldo is Ronaldo did it in the English Premier League. Messi hasn't done it. He's good. He's good with his national team. He's good in Spain. But for me, Messi would have to go and play in the English Premier League for 2 or 3 seasons and get the similar numbers he's getting as Ronaldo did. I just think he's going to have a hard time going down to somewhere, down at Wimbledon or somewhere like that, or Millwall, and not get kicked off the park, because it's a whole different game between the EPL and La Liga. It looks like when you watch a La Liga game, it's a stroll around the park. They're allowed to play the ball around and make, the skillful players allowed to show themselves. But once you see a Premier League game, and it's always been the same when I played when it was Old First Division team, as soon as that whistle goes, it's almost 100 miles an hour, and the people and bodies are flying all over the place. And until Messi has done that, for me, Ronaldo did it when he was with Manchester United. He started off slowly, but he scored 42 goals in one season with Manchester United, and he went to Real Madrid and continued that on. He's still doing it. But for me, between the two, I would pick Ronaldo. But I'm in the minority, and I know that.
Not in this room, you're not, because I'm 100% Ronaldo. I've always said that. That's probably the number one question I get. Youth development, Minnesota United, work with kids all day. Ronaldo or Messi? And they're all wearing a Messi kit. I'm like, if I had to choose, Ronaldo. He's got a left foot, he's got a right foot. He's brilliant in the air. He can take free kicks. His speed, his strength. I'm not sure if you know, he's the hardest trainer that a lot of coaches have ever seen. And so like I said, I've never seen a guy train. So people listening, if you're on YouTube, type in Cristiano Ronaldo training, you'll see the team doing push-ups, and Ronaldo's doing one-handed push-ups, and he's doing clap push-ups. With the other guy, you see some Mario Balotelli at Liverpool, he's got his knees on the ground, he's kind of doing one of those. Ronaldo, if you see him, he's just working non-stop, and he's always been like that, and he's a brilliant player. But that's who I would choose. Like you said, he did it in England.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. You just look at him, when he has his shirt off. You don't get that kind of body from sitting playing FIFA 16. He's not sitting on the couch, playing against his buddy. He's out there working hard and doing press-up, doing push-ups, whatever it needs to take. But like you said, for me, because he's done it everywhere, he does it for his national team, he does it in the EPL, and he's now doing it in La Liga. So he's done it everywhere. Until Messi does that, for me, I'm going to pick Ronaldo every time.
Yeah, like I said, if my life depended on it, I'd choose him right behind Alan Willie. So,
but if I had to have Messi in the Sunderland team, I would take him.
You can get him on loan, right? So just having to think about back on the EPL relegation candidates. Let's take Newcastle out of the equation. Let's take Sunderland out, because this is a nice studio and we don't want to ruin it. Who would you think? Not who's gone down? Who do you think's in the most trouble?
Right now, I think Villa for sure. Aston Villa is one of the teams. I think Bournemouth is another team that's struggling. They came into the season, and I've seen this happen before with teams coming out of the Championship. They start the season off well. Leicester used to be like this. Leicester came out a few years ago, and they started off the season great. Then they kind of just started to fade away just before Christmas. I think West Brom might be in a little bit of trouble. Watford and Norwich, those are the teams that you would think that would be down there. That's like teams like Sunderland and Newcastle have to win games against when they do play them. But with Villa being at the bottom and they're struggling really, really bad at the moment, they do have a new manager. They got a good point against Manchester City the weekend. Manchester City were all over them, but they just couldn't get that goal. I think if City had got a goal early on, that might have been a cricket score, as we say in England. But they just couldn't get that first goal, and they defended really well. They had a couple of chances themselves late in the game, but those are the kind of points that teams around the bottom of the league have to get at home against the top teams like Manchester City or Manchester United or Liverpool or Chelsea. People are going to look at Chelsea, and Chelsea could be in trouble. They have 11 points at the moment, I believe, and they're struggling. And when you look at the team, it's the same team that won the Premier League last season, and they have Pedro. They've got him in there, but it just seems that they've got a lot of old legs in the team right now. Diego Costa, when I first saw him playing when he came out, I thought this guy's incredible. He's just a natural goal scorer. He works hard, he hustles, but now he just seems to be wanting to fight everybody. He wants to get involved with other than scoring goals, which takes a lot of energy out of you. And Chelsea, should they get rid of Mourinho? Probably not. I don't think that's the right thing to do at the moment. They will come good, but they might need some help in the transfer window, which they're not afraid to spend some money. They probably need a couple of players, maybe a forward or a midfield player, but they need to get the game going pretty soon.
I have no idea what's happened to Chelsea. Like I said, the question I asked you earlier, and maybe you misunderstood, was what manager would you want to play under in the Premier League? And when we said Jackie Charlton, my granddad grew up with him. He's brilliant, but I have no idea what's happened to them. It's honestly baffling, because the first few weeks you always want the bigger teams to lose, especially being Newcastle and Sunderland fans. You kind of hope the other teams lose, the bigger teams lose. But now it's just it was funny at the beginning. Now it's just like, it's mind-boggling, as soccer people like yourself and I literally can't believe it.
Yeah, 11 points in 12 games. It's like, that's just unheard of. That's something that we're used to with Sunderland and Newcastle. And but like you say, they've got to start getting soon. They've got a month here or so 6 weeks before the transfer window comes in. I'm sure they're going to spend heavily when that time comes. But depending how far they're going to be behind, do they want to spend that kind of money to try and just finish the season in the middle of the table or try and get into the top 6? Because they're going to have to win the Champions League to qualify for next year if they're going to do anything this season. Definitely.
Well, Alan, I'd like to thank you for today. This is the first, like I said, it's a no-name soccer show, no-name football show. I'd like to take a quick shout out to a couple of high school teams just recently ended up. Girls Single A, Benil St. Margaret's won the state tournament. Girls Double A was Egan. Single A for boys was Orono High School. We had a camp there, so I'm very proud of those boys. And Double A was Anoka High School. We'll see you next week. We're looking forward to it. Appreciate it, Alan, and we'll see everyone soon.
Right, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Alan.